Welcome everyone. Today we'll have a new interesting and also very exciting guide for Diablo 4 Barbarians. So looking behind me, you can see a pretty complete Paragon. And you can see this particular Paragon is using 6 different glyphs. So before I show you guys the Paragon, let me go through something that has been on my mind. I want to do something for myself and also for everyone who plays Barbarians. So you can see that most of the time when you play a build, you'll have a glyph that shapes like something like this. And then you try different build, and then all of a sudden the glyph is different, and then there's different pathing, different respecting, different resetting and clicking, and then you try a different build, it looks different. So what I really wanted to do for the longest time is to have somewhat of a universal Paragon board, which enables me to try almost any build with the best perks, best legendary effects, and also the best stats for Barbarians at this stage in the meta for the season. And in order to do so, I want to cover all the good nodes that provide us with the most bonus damage, and also to give us the most damage against elites, berserking, and also to get us as many legendary perks as we can while getting the most effect from the glyphs. And yes, this is a little bit ambitious. I'm not gonna say this is gonna be the best, the best in slot glyph for every build, but this will work for majority of the build. And if we go through a short replay, this was me testing the build when I was level 98, trying the tier 100 dungeon with my friends before I even got my gears up. And here we're just playing a little bit, leveling up our glyphs and also trying different builds. And you can see my friends were doing the lightning build and also the meteor build that I showed to you guys. So if you haven't seen them, the sources meteor build and also the the tier 100 druid lightning build, definitely check it out. Now fast forwarding a little bit, what I really wanted to do is I want to make a build that works in tier 100 dungeons, that works against bosses and also against everything that is available in the content. And that build should technically not require you to change too much in the Paragon board, which enables you to do the things you enjoy, saves the time instead of respecting your Paragon board over and over when you try a different build. So this is the plan for this video, and yes, I wanted to show you guys that the build works, right? So here I have been trying the Paragon board out in different build, various build, for charge build and also for Hota build, and I'll be trying this Paragon out for a majority of the other build. And what I want to say to you guys is, in the future, as I try different build, including a basic attack build, including a bleeding build, including Hota, including upheaval, and also not all sorts of Barbarian build, I want to show you guys with a similar Paragon board. And let's get into the Paragon board in details. And of course guys, I'll have the Paragon board available to you guys so you can have a look at it yourself. And I'll teach you guys how to min and max for different type of build, because this Paragon board is actually very flexible. Now in case you guys are wondering how does this Paragon board works for all the build, I just wanted to add one more sentence over here. So the way it works for all the build is, you can use this Paragon board, and I'll explain about how to change your glyphs on the second part about for different build, and then you can just try the build out using legendaries, items, and also changing your skill tree. You don't have to change the Paragon board itself. You will retain 80, 85, or at least 70% of the most damage for the Paragon for the Barbarians. So this means that, instead of investing your time to try a new Paragon board and try a new build, you can try a new build while keeping this Paragon board. And if 75 or 80% of the right perks are here, and you're getting a good value out of your build, then you can change your build and change your Paragon board into perfecting for that build. I'm not saying that this Paragon board will fit everything, but what I'm trying to say is this Paragon board will provide you with at least 70 or 80% with the major powers for most of build for the Barbarians. And I'll explain on the first and second part that is coming. Okay, now coming over to the highlight of this video. Usually we talk about the build, right? But this time we're actually talking about Paragon board. I was like, how do I show a replay of a Paragon board, right? So I thought I'd do a long introduction. So starting away with my current Paragon board. So what is my build currently is that I'm a boss slaying Hota, and I decided to have the launch strike at the moment to provide myself with more clear for the dungeon. And here I'm using charge, and also this is very similar to my previous boss slaying Hota build. Instead of using Frenzy, I'm using launch strike for more accessibility for tier 100 dungeons. And Let's go through this particular Paragon board and let's see why do I say it can be universal and can be very helpful. Now again guys, I'm not going to say this is the perfect Paragon board, but I'm saying that this will fit into most build. So right away, I'm having exploit, which provides us with more vulnerability damage, a way to trigger vulnerability for barbarians, and also this is also a great multiplier if you're looking for additional source of damage on top of everything else. Now keep in mind, it is possible to replace those glyphs into something else, which I'll explain in the second part. After exploit, the second glyph we have is going to be Wrath. Now Wrath is really interesting because this provides us with increased critical damage and also provides us with more fury as you critical strike. You can definitely get more dexterity in this particular board, and what that allows us to do is this allows us to enjoy a multiplier that is coming from the Barbarian special, the Grandfather. Yes, I have found the Grandfather quite excited and was really happy about this, and having the Grandfather and having the Wrath glyph allows me to get over 1100, sometimes even 1300 critical strike damage, and I was able to hit 300 million, 400 million with this combination of the build, which I'll update to you guys very soon. Now at this stage of the time, what you want to enjoy is you want to enjoy the ways of getting more overpower. So we'll be using the legendary knot over here to provide most of the Barbarian build with overpower. And while doing so, you're getting a little more damage using two-handed maces, because most of the Barbarian build again are using two-handed maces. Now I'm not saying all the builds are like this, some builds this will be a little different. So coming over to the right hand side, this is going to be the major multiplier for the Barbarians. And again, for the Charger Barbarians, for the Hota Barbarians, and also for any other Barbarians, you can still enjoy the, the berserking damage multiplier. And this is where I invest most of my points. So here we're going to have the Eye glyph and get this one to at least 65 strength. And I'll be getting to the left hand side and also right hand side to enjoy more berserking damage and also more berserking damage. So this will work for any of the Barbarian build on this particular board. You can even invest more points over here for 2 additional strength slots, and this will give you up to 75 strength. Now before we move over to the next board, if you're looking for ways of getting more attack speed, you can come over to Carnage. But for my current build, because I have decided to go with additional attack speed with critical strike skills, I didn't feel that I needed the slot over here. So with this legendary, I was getting 25 attack speed. 25% attack speed, and with a legendary knot over here that takes 6 slots, this will take me about 6 points for 16 attack speed, and I didn't feel like this was stacking up fast enough, so that's why I didn't go for this. But if you're short on attack speed, this one's really good. Now as we keep going, over here I have another glyph slot which allows us to enjoy a little bit of physical damage and also additional armor. As you perk over here, you can get up to 42 willpower for the Dominate Overpower glyph, and this allows me to deal the most overpower damage. While at this stage, I'm also getting additional damage from elites, and this is on the side. Now I'll explain about swapping the glyphs very soon if you guys don't play or don't plan to use the overpower. And finally onto the top glyph, I'm getting additional slot over here for 40 strength glyph. And this one is again an overpower glyph that gives me a higher multiplier for the overpower and also damage for maces. I'm getting a little bit more vulnerability damage and also getting the legendary slot to increase damage even further with vulnerability plus overpower. Now coming over to the right hand side, one of the top legendary knot we have is going to be this one. Getting 25% increased berserking damage multiplier is going to be massive. Here I'm looking at least 58%, I can even go higher if I'm main and max back gears. And while doing so, I'm getting more damage with Berserk on the side. And here we're getting a 40 strength glyph, which currently I'm using the Martial glyph. And I will be enjoying damage reduction from bleeding enemies and also having increased damage against bleeding. Now a small tip on the side, if you guys are looking for a cheap way of getting bleeding, having 2 points over here, 1 into Outburst and also 1 into Toughest Nail will provide you with bleeding. And this is a really cheap source of bleeding to give you tons of benefit. Because a lot of our skill perks like this one, we want to get some bleeding and to gain more Berserk. And here we'll be enjoying damage reduction and also bonus damage against bleeding enemies. Now coming over to the final part, one of the reasons I want to share you guys with the Paragon board is not just to show you my current build, but what if you want to play a different build? So how it works is you want to understand the first thing is how I'm trying to make a max my Paragon board. So one of the example is the idea I have is if you take 8 points over here to get certain amount of berserking, I want to make sure that's enough and also worth it. So every point from this point onwards to this point, I was making sure I was getting at least 5 berserking for each of the skill point or the Paragon point I spent. And similarly, if I didn't take those points, if I went for those 3 points, this will actually provide me with less berserking damage, because this takes up 3 points for 10.06 increased berserking damage. But while taking 8 points over here, each of those points in average was giving me 5 berserking damage. And this was some of the ideas and also concepts I had between and also behind all the optimization for this particular board. Now at the same time, I know sometimes you guys might not use a certain glyph, so here comes the adjustment. Let's say if you're not planning to use the exploit glyph, let me take this away for a moment, and now let's have a look at what other choices we have. Exploit is a dexterity glyph that requires 25 dexterity. And here, if you're planning to use mortal draw, which allows you to swap a lot of weapons, yep, you can put that in, and this Paragon board still works. So this Paragon board have a certain flexibility that you can fit in and also adjust. And similarly, let me put this back in, so I'll put the exploit back in. And similarly, let's say if you want something universal, if you want something like territorial, and you don't plan to get a lot of critical damage because you don't have the grandfather and you don't see your build, perking into critical damage. So you can take away the critical damage wrath glyph over here and you can put in territorial. And this will allow you to enjoy the dexterity slots over here. Now do keep in mind my territorial glyph is only not level 15 yet, and this is one of the reasons why once I put it in, it's only level 9, right? Once I put it in, it shows 25 dexterity, but once this one gets level 15, I'll show you guys the Wrath Glyph replacement. So once this one gets to 15, if you put it here, you will have 39 dexterity for the slot. Now similarly, if you guys are not using Overpower for your build, let's say if you're not using Dominate and you're not using Crusher, one is a Strength Glyph and the other one is a Willpower Glyph. So if I'm trying to replace this one, so I can use Untaunted because I'll be getting more Fortified. I can put this in, all of a sudden you're getting bonus damage with Fortified. And similarly, if you're trying to use, let's say most of the time we use a two-handed mace, right, for Barbarians. If you're using the two-handed mace for the Barbarians, and if you fit Might Glyph in there, you can be getting 40 strength. Notice the reason I'm not getting 40 strength is because those glyphs at the moment, they're not level 15. So once you get all your glyphs to level 15 and insert them in correctly, this particular Paragon board will help you adjust into the glyph you're benefiting from. And finally, if you don't plan to use a martial glyph and you're not shouting a lot, you can replace this one. So similarly, you can just look into a glyph that is providing you or requiring you with 40 strength. So I'll give you guys another example. So for example, if I want to enjoy the Might Glyph, which is quite popular because the Might Glyph was providing me with increased damage having a two-handed weapon. So if I throw this in, all of a sudden I deal a little more damage against bleeding enemies, more damage reduction, and also having 8% increased damage while using a two-handed weapon. So the availability of the Paragon board will allow me to kind of adjust whatever glyph I want because I have perked out 6 glyph slots. And while keeping the main ones in the same place, you can take and also throw them around, get glyphs to level 15, and play the build you want to play to enjoy a majority of the benefit from the Paragon board for the Barbarians. Now I know I try to share a lot of information in this one, and hopefully it's not too long just talking about the Paragon board. And yes guys, I will have the Paragon board available for you guys from one of the crafting build, and you can look at the Paragon board. Although you can see at the time the skill tree and things are a little different, you don't have to worry too much about that. So this is just one of the board I was testing and also optimizing, and eventually I come to a Paragon board that I believe is great for most of the build for the Barbarians. Now there will be some adjustment. Let's say if you're using a one-handed weapon and you don't enjoy having two-handed weapon damage, those can be adjusted in the future. And I'll making another guide in the future for you guys to teach you about different adjustments to get the most out of your board. So you don't have to respec everything. Maybe just change this part and you'll be still perfect for your Paragon board for the Barbarians. Now before I finish, if you guys do see any tips and also advices to optimizing the Paragon board for the Barbarians, do let me know in the comments as well, because I have spent quite a bit of time making this one and also trying to get the most out of it. But if I missed anything, or if there's any way to get more damage and also more defensiveness, let me know as well in the comments. Now, if you guys haven't subscribed, it is a really good time to do so, because I'll be covering tons of Diablo 4 related topics and also videos and also guides. We'll be looking to the top meta builds, non-meta builds, leveling up, and also Paragon tricks. We're also looking to the latest events and also official updates, and also changes to different characters and also different builds in the game. So make sure you hit that subscribe button and also turn the notification on, because a lot of you who are watching the videos have not subscribed. You can see 80% of the viewers who are watching our videos have not subscribed, so make sure you subscribe to stay tuned for the latest update for Diablo 4.